Hello, and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve, and I wildcarded in Game Week 5, which I said last week was probably one of the harder weeks to be wildcarding in. But my team was looking bad, my assets were dropping in value, I wanted out of investment in both Crystal Palace and Newcastle, and I had no bench heading into the game week with a couple of flagged players. So knowing that I would be wildcarding in Game Week 6 anyway, given the state of my team, I decided to pull the trigger in Game Week 5 to avoid bleeding out, saving my two free transfers that I had banked to bring Salah in for Palmer, and to also jump on a bunch of value. So today we'll go through a bit of a debrief about what predictions I got right, what I got wrong, and how the game week turned out as a result. So remember to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, especially if you get any value out of the following content. And as always, I've put the various timestamps below so you can jump through to the sections that interest you the most. Right, so West Ham versus Chelsea. Now, Chelsea absolutely crushed West Ham at the weekend, but not to take anything away from Chelsea, as a 3-0 performance is a solid result. But I wouldn't put this down to Chelsea playing particularly well. West Ham completely capitulated, jeez, making it all too easy for Chelsea throughout the match. Jackson put on a somewhat thrilling display. He had an outstanding game, scoring 2 clinical goals. That actually has me wondering if he's been working on his finishing in the off-season. However, Enzo was again wayward with his progressive passes. However, in this fixture, comparable to the last Chelsea review I gave, Caicedo's forward passes were actually hitting the mark in the fixture, helping Chelsea generate some decent attack. Now, Gusto was still out at right back, who I think is a huge loss in terms of how much attack Chelsea can generate out of the defensive line. And Fofana was playing in that right back spot again, ahead of Disasi this week, as did call out Disasi's performance last week. However, Fofana wasn't getting very far forward in the Chelsea backline. It was actually Tosin Adara by Bioro, who had a great game at centre back. He also managed to break the lines coming out of centre back with the ball at his feet on a couple of occasions, generating some good forward momentum and looking very comfortable on the ball. Now, shout out to Oscar Papa 8936 for the clarification on the pronunciation that I probably just butchered. He explained that the O sounds in Adara Bayoro's last name are pronounced as or sounds in Yoruba. So I probably got that completely wrong, but that is why I'm trying to pronounce it that way. Anyway, Madueke was also absent in the match. As I said, Fofana wasn't getting too far forward out of that right back spot. Cucurella made a few good runs through the midfield, but I suspect a team with a bit more grit in midfield would have snuffed out a lot of Chelsea's attacks. Of course, Palmer got in on the returns in the week that I sold him. I've actually dodged some major points by going between him and Salah in the first few game weeks of the season, which is why my rank is suffering a little bit at the moment. But I still think my decision is right with Chelsea, and I am still happy to have sold Palmer, as I don't expect Chelsea to be playing many defences like what West Ham put on show this weekend. Right, so Mbeumo scored in the first 23 seconds against Spurs with a volley off his shin. Now, it was actually a great strike and some huge differential points for my team, as he is currently only owned by 13% of the game, but with many Game Week 6 wildcards out there, a lot of managers will be jumping on Mbeumo, and his price is probably set to skyrocket. Now, Brentford didn't get too much more out of the game as Spurs crushed them 3-1, but I haven't had a chance to really sit down and watch that full 90 minutes yet. So I don't have a hell of a lot to go into in that game. But being played at the same time was the feature match, which was Liverpool versus Bournemouth, who I was hugely invested in. Now, Semenyo, who is one of my enablers in midfield, actually scored in the 4th minute against Liverpool, but it was disallowed for being narrowly offside. Now, Semenyo played really well in this match, and he actually ended up with the majority of Bournemouth's chances, shooting 4 times, 2 times on target, and came away with an XG of 0.4. Now, 0.4 expected goals, this is not expected goal involvement, this is just expected goals, against Liverpool at Anfield is exactly why I am very happy to have him in my team, especially for the next 2 games in which I did bring him in for. Now, I was a Semenyo owner last season, and I did say in pre-season this year that I thought Semenyo would probably flourish, or have a very good chance of flourishing, with the move of Solanke across to Spurs, and it looks like that has come to be the case. I'm really looking forward to the next 2 games for Semenyo, as I think he is probably a bit of a sneaky differential that is also very kindly priced if you do want to fit in a few big assets on your respective wildcards out there, if you do happen to be wildcarding. Now, I did hold on to Diogo Jota, who got auto-subbed out for Greaves, which was obviously pretty frustrating. Now, Jota was benched in favour of Darwin Núñez, which did catch me a little bit by surprise, obviously, because I held Jota through on my wildcard. But what was really out of the blue was Jota getting a full rest in this match with, is it Chazea or Kaeza coming on for Núñez in the last parts of that match. Now, I was hoping that Arne Slot was stabilising the team based on his selections up until now. There hasn't been a hell of a lot of rotation. But when I did bring Jota in for my Game Week 1 team, I did say that he does come with a little bit of risk, especially around Champions League fixtures, and that he has an injury record that leans him towards needing to be rotated in periods of heavy fixture congestion. However, given Darwin's sub-on appearances in the games leading up until Game Week 5, there was nothing really to write home about, and so I didn't really see Darwin Núñez getting the start over Jota at all. Slot was also sounding like a bit of a manager that might not end up rotating the team too much. But if he is going to be bringing Darwin Núñez in, then looking at a fixture like Bournemouth is probably the best shot at trying to get Núñez rolling into the season. So for all of those Jota owners out there, still think Jota is first choice, given he was prioritised for the Champions League fixture in midweek. And Darwin's performance against Bournemouth I don't think will threaten Jota's spot too much, apart from the beautiful goal that he did score. The rest of the game, Darwin was actually rather absent in the match, or when he did get on the ball, he was actually the main breaking down point in Liverpool's attacking sequences. There were at least 2 occurrences where Salah was sprinting towards goal in a counter-attack, with rushing defenders losing track of him, and Darwin Núñez underhit both his passes to him, losing possession. Extremely frustrating as a Salah captainer this week, and of course because Darwin was playing in front of my asset that was benched for the game week. However, I had already pre-planned selling Jota to Saka this week. So I have actually left 2.6 million in the bank, which is just enough to go. Well, I've actually got 0.1 million spare to go from Diogo Jota all the way up to Saka for Arsenal's good run of fixtures. Okay, my microphone just reset for 5 seconds there, but where was I? Yeah, so with hindsight, I should have probably recognized the danger of a benching for Diogo Jota in this game and opted for someone a bit safer like Diaz instead, which I am now obviously looking back at and going, why did I not go with someone slightly safer? Who also came away with a brace in the game, which would have been a monster green arrow had I gone there instead. I am still on a pretty decent green arrow anyway in a game week. That was obviously pretty tough for many FPL teams out there given the fixtures. But the final player that I did have in this match was Konate. And unlike many other content creators out there, I firmly believe that Konate is locked into the Liverpool squad with very little threat of rotation. And you could probably compare his minutes or likely minutes to someone like Gabriel at Arsenal. Now, Gabriel is also not nailed in that Arsenal team, although I think he will play the majority of all the matches. And the reason that I believe this is, well, there's a few things. Slot's obviously very keen for his defensive players to be winning duels, of which Konate has been an absolute beast since he has been in the team. But also, football managers rarely like to muck around with rotating their centre-back pairings, as they want to form a firm partnership between the last two central defenders on the pitch so that they can cover each other effectively as they understand what their partner is likely to do in situations as they play together often. Now, I got super lucky that Kepa had an absolute mind melt when Konate sent a long ball forward from deep straight up to Diaz. Kepa came rushing out of his box to challenge for it, got absolutely nowhere near it, leaving Diaz with an open net after he controlled the ball and basically turned Kepa and just passed the ball into the goal. Now, Konate's clean sheet and assist did beat Robertson this week, but fell behind Trent Alexander-Arnold as he pulled in, is it an 11-pointer, I think? Yeah, Trent came away with 11 points this week. So, I mean, he is a full 2 million more expensive than Konate. But for a mere 5 million investment in Konate to block the clean sheets of both Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold, I'm obviously stoked with an attacking return here and the fact that he has kept a clean sheet. Given that Semenyo did end up blanking, I was obviously having my fingers crossed for a Semenyo goal to wreck all the clean sheets of all Liverpool assets, even though I did own one this week, but that was not to be the case. Now, Rodgers got a late assist for Watkins with 10 minutes to go to draw the game. He then got the final assist in the 4th minute of extra time for none other than Duran, who scored again off the bench, which is probably the best impact sub that I can remember in a long, long time. Now, what a time for me to be bringing Rodgers in as he gets his first set of returns for the season, coming away with 10 points in this fixture. I feel like I've almost like jumped the queue at a grocery store or something for all those FPL managers that have been on Rodgers up until this point. I am obviously pretty stoked to be in on the returns there. Now, I also predicted last week, or I didn't predict, but I really wanted to see Rashford dropped in the Palace vs United game in favour of Garnacho. As I said, I thought Amad Diallo was our best attacker in the United squad, and that I thought Garnacho had more than earned his spot to start over Rashford, even though Rashford scored in the game last week. And I did warn someone in the comments who was considering bringing in Rashford on the wild card. Forget who that was now, but I hope you did dodge that benching, mate. So we did get exactly what we wanted against Palace this weekend. And United absolutely destroyed Palace in that first half. I do not know how they did not get the ball in the back of the net. So I drifted off to sleep at about 5 a.m. in New Zealand, happy in the knowledge that United would surely score in that second half and wreck Henderson's clean sheet, given how poor Palace were and the amount of attack that United were managing to generate, only to wake up and see the 0-0 draw. It's pretty gutted, to be honest, because those could have been some. I think that's swung quite a bit of rank against me there. And Henderson owners have definitely gotten away with one there. I also sold Munoz on my wild card, who did come away with a clean sheet, a very lucky 6 points. But given how the game played, I am totally comfortable with the decision of getting rid of Palace assets. They should have conceded, well, they should have been down probably by a couple of goals in that first half. Haven't seen the second half yet, but that's what happens in football sometimes. I also held on to Joao Pedro, who I thought did have a chance of being benched in this Nottingham Forest fixture. But I thought he would probably start, considering he was already back training with the Brighton squad on Wednesday in midweek. I did expect him to get about the last 20 to 30 minutes plus stoppage time, which is enough for me for a 5.5 million asset with penalties and coming on at the end of games to play against tired legs. Now, he didn't get me anything this week, but I am happy to have him, even though the fixtures look tough. I think he's got a good shot at the occasional return, which is really all I need from these 5.5 million or thereabouts enabling assets. And then, of course, there was one of the season's pivotal title-deciding fixtures of City versus Arsenal, which was the main reason most FPL managers were deciding not to wildcard in Gameweek 5. Now, this is also why I pre-booked in the Jota to Saka move this week, as I didn't want to over-invest in the attackers in this fixture, as I thought this would very much play like a cup final. Now, I did opt to go with a double up in the Arsenal defence, and I will be bringing in Saka to triple up on Arsenal for their coming fixture run. And I also opted to hold on to Haaland in this fixture, as I didn't want to lose any value on him, nor did I want to waste a transfer to have to bring him back in simply to dodge this Arsenal match. Now, Arsenal went down to 10 men at the end of the first half, with Trossard getting his second yellow card for kicking the ball away. Cannot be doing that in such a big match, which is... I mean, Declan Rice is just returning from suspension for doing exactly the same thing only a couple of game weeks earlier. But anyway, in the second half, Arsenal deployed a 5-4-0 system, which morphed into a 6 at the back, 3 in a very narrow 3 sitting on the edge of the 18, depending on how wide the ball was. So 6 at the back was more when the ball was out on the wings, whereas when it was a bit more centrally, one of the wingers tucked in, and it was a 5-4-0. It's just the epitome of a deep block with no striker, no outlet. And it ended up with Man City coming away with about 94% ball possession in that second half, which is just outrageous. But this actually benefited Raya hugely, as he made 9 saves from shots that were mostly outside the box and pretty easy for him to deal with. Unfortunately, though, he did concede in almost the last kick of the game, dropping him out of the bonus points, which is kind of crazy, as it was, if goalkeepers concede, they are typically not getting anywhere near the bonus. But he did concede twice, very close to the bonus points, but he conceded when Arsenal switched off for the third or maybe even fourth time during a corner. Now, unfortunately, Saliba got a great block in. He was celebrating like he'd saved a goal, which he had because it was a very dangerous attack. But City just rushed to the corner, played it quickly, ball went into the box, ping-ponged around the place, and of course, City nab some points off Arsenal, which was honestly heartbreaking. I was really rooting for Arsenal there. I really wanted them to get the win. They definitely deserved it. They put so much heart into that defensive asset. There were players pulling up with cramp all over the pitch. But of course, City just do know how to get results when those results are really needed. Gabriel, my hero, somehow scored off the back of his head, facing his own net, to earn himself a huge 7-point return in the toughest fixture of the Premier League, being away at the Etihad. And of course, Haaland scored just the solo goal, but it was still enough to take all 3 bonus points and rewarding my decision to hold him through this very tough fixture. So I'm actually really happy with the wild card. I'm really happy with the performances from pretty much all of my players, apart from, of course, Diogo Jota. But I will just very quickly show you how the team is lining up for Gameweek 6, this is pretty much the game week that I was looking at and what I had in mind when I was building that Game Week 5 wildcard. So I've already got the double up in Arsenal defense at home to Leicester with Raya and Gabriel both in net. I've got Konate in the team, held him through the wildcard. He is away to Wolves this week. I've got Pedro Porro away to Manchester United. I will have to check out that second half for Manchester United, but given they are failing to put the ball in the back of the net, that does look like a pretty good fixture for Porro. We've got Rodgers in for his fixture away to Ipswich. Still got Mohamed Salah in there away to Wolves. Wolves did get crushed a couple of weeks ago against Chelsea at Molineux, and so I could see Liverpool doing some damage there. Diogo Jota is being sold this week for Saka. I will wait for the EFL Cup midweek, which I don't think Saka will probably line up for, but we will keep an eye out just to make sure there's not any serious injuries around the place, I might end up holding Diogo Jota if, say, someone like Salah was injured or something, but anyway, we'll make some decisions later on there. Semenyo is in for his game at home against Southampton, which is a plum fixture, and I'm looking forward to hopefully about a 0.6 to 0.7 XG in this game. Fingers crossed that he can actually sink some goals in this. And Mbeumo is at home to West Ham, which I am really happy about given how badly I think West Ham performed as a team last week. Did not expect that out of the Hammers. Of course, I am very much looking forward to Mbeumo, who's just on everything. He's nailed for 90 minutes, playing up front, on pens, and most of the set pieces. He could definitely flourish in the upcoming fixture run. We've got Haaland away to Newcastle, who is probably going to be my captain, given I've been watching Newcastle quite closely up until now. I think City will probably score 2 or 3 goals past them. Very close between him and Salah, as I think Liverpool could also put 2 or 3 goals past Wolves as well. And I have Joao Pedro in for the fixture away to Chelsea, which should actually be quite an interesting game. All right, so that's what the lineup looks like. I will be back in a couple of days to give some additional thoughts around all of those people out or managers out there that will be wildcarding in this week. But all right, that wraps up this video. So don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a comment to tell us what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.